Hello guys, Sir Grandalot here, and here is my Forgeguard, Bon Carino. I was planning to play him as an erasing strike Void Knight. Let's say that you have always dreamt about playing a paladin that was like a necromancer. This is the class for you. You spin around doing no damage while your minions do all the job. Now, I will give you a too long didn't watch as usual, because this video is probably going to be in the 20 minutes range, and if you do not have the time, just appreciate my too long didn't watch, click the like, subscribe, and or the $Rooney button there at the bottom right, and you will make a little Sir Grandalot happy. We're getting closer to 1 million subs, by the way. Still going to take a bit, but we're getting closer. The too long didn't watch is that it's a fairly good class. It struggles a bit every now and then. The main issue that I have with it is it's a bit dull to play. It's not a particularly engaging play style. For reference, and let's go to Reign of Dragons just for a moment to show you, because there are a lot of showcases that are like, oh, this is the top meta league build of 1.1. No clickbait, by the way, and then the showcase, it's a corruption 100 with like enemies level 22, and it's like, come on, bro. No, what I do is like this, 750, 800, 1000. I was planning to make it to 1000 during the weekend, but I've been so busy. I'm sorry, I disappointed you. What the build does is, the character himself does little to no damage. It's a bit like the Necromancer with the Wraithlord. You spin around. While you spin around, you summon swords that go and do damage. And the longer you spin, the more swords you have. You can have up to 12. And they last a decent amount of time, and they also deal a fairly decent amount of damage. Although the most important part of the damage of this build is, of course, this little fiery dude over here, which is the manifest armor. The main issue of the build itself is that it's a little bit dull to play, because if you have a look at my quick bar here, the skill selection is, well, obviously manifest armor. And then we want sigils of hope, because they are a very good source of damage increase for us and for our minion. And then we want healing hands, as a traversal skill and as a source of healing for us. Then we have Forge Strike, which deals very bad damage, very, very bad, and costs quite a lot of mana. So you're not going to use Forge Strike very often. We will talk about when to use it during the showcase. And then there is Warpath, which deals no damage. You're just spinning around to summon swords or axes. Sometimes you summon an axe. But you stay away from the enemies. You're getting insta-gibbed at high corruption if you stay close to the enemies. You spin away from the enemies while your swarm here, your army of nonsense, takes care of them. So, think about this. You have a swarm of nonsense, you spin around dealing no damage. The skill that I have bound to W, I never use it, and like if I use it I'm bad and I should feel bad. E is the traversal skill, but most of the time we're just doing this, so it doesn't happen super often that I have to use the traversal skill unless I want to speed up things a little bit. And then every few seconds I need to refresh the 1 Sigils of Hope. Up to 4. And that's it. So it's a build that honestly can be played on a macro. Skill required close to 0. Early corruption you can spin on the enemies to deal some extra damage, but when I was around 400 or 500 I was starting to spin away from the enemies. And if you're feeling a bit annoyed by the sound of the weapons in the background, because they make the same sound when we summon them and when they disappear, I'm sorry. It's like that. If you play this build, you will get used to it, or you will just put the sounds completely on mute. In terms of performance, the build is quite decent. I've not had particular issues making it to 750 corruption, and when I die, it's usually user error. So, let's talk about the skills first. Warpath, basically the only thing that is important is get the nodes that make it cost less and get all the nodes that increase the summon rate frequency of the forged weapons. Everything else is absolutely useless. Because we're not dealing any damage with Warpath, it doesn't matter. I spent 5 points here just for extra sustain and, you know, channel cost reduction, extra movement speed. We deal no damage with this. Forge Strike. There is only one situation in which we should use Forge Strike, but it's not really necessary. That is, at the very beginning of an echo or of a boss fight, if we use Forge Strike and hit a bunch of enemies, we can summon more weapons right at the beginning. It costs quite a bit of mana. Everything he heals is just, to increase the damage of our weapons, some of them, and stuff like that. The damage that it does is ridiculous, and in order to cast it, we get stuck in place for a moment. Which, when you're doing the campaign, it feels great. Like, you summon the Giga Hammer, you're dealing a bit of damage, and it's like, ho, GG. And then, when you're at higher corruption, you do, GG, you're dead. It's not very good. So, you are never going to use this unless, there is a pack of random trash enemies, you have no weapons, you do, okay, and then you move away. But the truth is that just by spinning, you build them quite quickly. Like, we're already at 2, 3 now, very soon. You see, they build up very quickly. So I would highly suggest you not to focus too much on spamming Forge Strike. It's a fairly mana-intensive build because we need to refresh Sigils of Hope quite frequently, and they cost a ton to refresh. So, again, Forge Strike is there just to buff our Forge weapons, and that's it. And it deals no damage. Sigils of Hope, important stuff, is extra fire damage per sigil, damage granted per sigil, extra healing, it costs less, and the ability of casting it instantly so that we can cast it while we're moving. It makes it cost much more, so it's important to build a bit of mana and mana regeneration. Healing Hands, the important stuff is having it as a traversal skill. I got a few random nodes here and there. Honestly, I believe that if for Healing Hands we only had 15 points, it would be about the same. Because once you make it a traversal skill and get some extra healing bonus here and there, you're fine. Manifest Armor. You do not need 28 skill points. One of the reasons why I made this build is for the hat that a Nemesis gave me, very kindly, with a +4 to Manifest Armor, but that +4 is completely optional, not necessary at all. Pretend that these 4 nodes are not there. I'm going to mention them when we talk about gear later. There is going to be a link to Last Epoch tools, by the way, to the build, so you can have a look at everything more in detail. 24 is a very nice point, because at 24 you can max the stats from your armor, you can max the stats from the gloves, you can max the stats from the boosts, and you can max the stats from the helmet. This one, the armor being able to do a whirlwind strike every 4 seconds is nice. Being able to have a chance at taunting enemies, I wish the chance was a bit higher, so I was very tempted to forgo those points and just max War Stomp, because at high corruption, the guard, the armor being able to taunt the enemies is very nice, but it is what it is. It happens every second, so, eventually it's going to happen, and it's nice when it does. All the nodes are there to make it deal more damage and to equip our sword. This one is very, very important. Very important. These nodes. We need to talk a little bit about gear now. So let's go to gear and let's go to... I need to be at the bank. I will never remember to cut out this piece. How is your day? I hope you're having a great day. My day so far has been decent. Not particularly amazing, but, it is what it is. It's a Saturday, I chilled a bit with my family. And okay, there we are at the bank, enough with the nonsense. Let's look for Obsession. Here, there you go, this thing. This thing, stats on this item also apply to your minions. This will be very very nice to have in this build. It increases spell damage, and that one is the reason why I decided to get these nodes. They boost the flat melee and give spellfire damage to the armor, and they unlock this one, which is a fire spell that deals 60 fire damage in an AoE every 3 seconds. It's pretty nice. It deals a very nice amount of damage, and considering that our armor is the dude that is going to tank most of the enemies, like most of them are going to go against it, having it throw an AoE with some very nice damage multipliers to it is what made me put those 4 external points, passive skill points, in this node. Completely optional. It's not a game changer. Absolutely not. And it would be nice to have these, but I need at least legendary potential too, and I need the right mods. Let's talk about gear a little bit. Is there anything that is absolutely necessary for this build? In terms of base item, I would say there are 2 things that this build can benefit a lot from. One is this one, the Phantom Grip, just because it does so much for everything in this build. Increase forged weapon duration, increase the damage for the forged weapon. It gives us some mana, which is really important. Minion critical strike chance, like this one is amazing. Specifically for this build. And also the stats on your gloves apply to a forged weapon at 93% effectiveness. It's the GOAT ring. How much legendary potential you want from the ring? You don't need that much. If you get a legendary potential 1 and you throw increased minion damage to it, you are good. But honestly, it's not necessary. Even the base item itself is absolutely amazing for this build. The chest piece is disgusting, but it's not needed at all. It's just that it's the best chest that I have on this account during patch 1.1, and I'm going to use it on virtually all of my characters, or at least most of them. So you're going to see it very often, but it's not needed at all. Until I would say 500, if not 600 corruption, I was just using an exalted chest and I was doing absolutely fine in terms of survivability. And this is an omne that I dropped on stream a few weeks ago. I crafted it for my Necromancer. And because the resistance rolls are very very good, I'm using it, but it's not necessary. If you do not have this, you could use another unique. I'm never going to find it. This thing. This one actually very good for this build. Not with the increased damage over time. No, forget that one. But giving crit strike multiplier to the minions, and intelligence is useful because this is a pretty mana hungry build. Your minion takes increased damage, that kinda sucks. But overall, this item, if you have it, can fit this build pretty well. It's just that, I have a better option, mainly because of the resistance rolls and +1 to all skills and everything, so it's difficult for me when I make a new character to avoid using these omnes, is what I'm trying to say. Same for this. What else do we have? Oh, this is what made me think about making a Forgeguard. This is a borderline perfect helmet. Unfortunately, the thing that is sealed is pretty much useless for this build because even the boots have the reduced bonus takage from critical strikes, so I'm way past 100. And so, the sealed affix doesn't do anything, but it is what it is. +4 to manifest armor, very good. Attunement, increase health. Very, very solid. But the other piece that I would consider a must-have is this. Apatimo. And I'm not sure what are the best prefixes. I'm guessing that increased melee attack speed is borderline mandatory. I do not know, and I do not have a way to test whether melee void damage or melee critical chance would be better for average damage. I honestly have no clue. This character is Circle of Fortune. Did I show the icon? Yeah, there. Circle of Fortune. So the testing that I can do is limited to what I drop. and or what I craft. And I really wish that I could have a similar apathy mode with crit rate instead of probably melee with damage, but I have no clue. It is what it is. I don't have it. But this apathy mode is pretty disgusting. I'm good with it. I don't want to change anything to it. I'm fine with this weapon. Other things that are important: belt, something like this is going to be very good. Boots, something like this, going to be very good. Here there is a little bit of cope. This is by far the worst piece in my build. And increased melee attack speed is phenomenal. For this build, you want it. Increased minion damage, it's okay, but it doesn't do much for the minions, because on us it increases the minion damage, but when it gets transferred to the minion, it does not improve the minion damage itself. Because, you know, we have many nodes that transfer the stats of our gloves to the minion. Here, melee attack speed works, yes. Minion damage, no. Lightning resistance and crit avoidance, yes. So I'm looking for a pair of gloves with melee attack speed, ideally tier 7, but tier 6 would also be okay, and some other good stats, and a legendary potential 2 Jalra obsession here thingy, and then craft it, and then we try. But so far I've been using this, which if you have a look even at my resistances, this is pretty much wasted. I do not need crit avoidance, I do not need lightning resistance. It's a bit of a cope piece, but it's not bad. And here I just have a bunch of health everywhere. Health, armor health, resistances. Did I show everything? Oh, here. Code of this thing. As usual, it's RNG based. If you can get one with the good rolls, use it. If not, just use an exalted one. Ideally, plus percentage to all resistances while channeling, very good, because you're going to be channeling all the time with this build. And if you could get something better than just stats and health, good for you. But considering that I got a high tier attunement, this is actually pretty solid for this build. And then I have a Ribbon of Blood, which is nice overall for a minion based build. And I wouldn't say that it's needed, but it's definitely nice. I dropped a few with the Legendary Potential 2, this one with Legendary Potential 3. I crafted it with some nice mods, I've been using it. Having the minion with the leech rate is very nice, because it means that unless it gets one shot, it's going to recover the hit points lost almost immediately. So this is not a must-have, absolutely, by far, but a very nice piece nonetheless. We talk about skills, we talk about gear. Let's very quickly talk about passives, because there is nothing particularly unusual or any secret illegal tech about it. Again, if I go a bit quickly having a look at the passives, just because, you know, there is no secret combo. In the video description and in the first pinned comment, you will find the link to Last Epoch tools. And here is the bunch of nodes for the Forgeguard itself. It's basically just stuff that increases our tankiness in the form of armor, stats, and hit points, and stuff that increases the armor damage, tankiness, and hit points. Now, without further ado, let's have a quick monolith clear here at 750. I've had a fairly long stream just a day or two ago, where for about an hour and a half, more or less, I've been grinding monoliths from, I believe, 650 to 750. So if you want to have a longer look at one of my streams, that one was done without a microphone, you can check out the live section of my YouTube channel. You're going to find it, because all my older streams are still there. And you can see what it's like for a longer playing session. Here I'm just going to, you know, clear an echo or two and see how things go. I didn't check if this is an arena echo. Let's see. If it's an arena echo, we leave it and we do something else. Okay, look, it looks okay. So, the way the build works is we already have the manifest armor. Once it's been summoned, we don't need to do it again. And then we just spin around. You may notice it's not a particularly engaging playstyle. Because you may see, oh, 5,000 hit points and the chest from Aberov with the really good mods. Sergrandron must be tanky as hell. I do not usually have issues in monolith, but I can get one shot killing bosses. Oh my god, it's the first time that I log in from my desktop in a few days and I do not have a loot filter. Oh my god, the trash. Oh, the amount of garbage. You just spin around, and you let your minions do everything. It's very important with your pinky finger, if you're used to play it on a keyboard, to get used to give your minions the attack command. Because they will not always focus on the same enemy, and sometimes they follow you, sometimes don't. And so there are occasions where you really want them to focus on a particular enemy, and so you need to have your pinky finger ready to press A, you know, the red finger there that shows up on the ground, so that you can do the required things. What's the mission here? What do you want me to do? Oh, okay. You will notice my hit points going down pretty quickly. This build, this character, is pretty tanky, but the sustain is extremely limited. Because outside of Healing Hands, which is a traversal skill, I do not have any long-term form of sustain. And what I can do is spam a bunch of potions and run away using Healing Hands and then Rage. That's pretty much it. No, I told all my minions to go to the Scalebane Healer because they were wasting a little bit too much time killing other things. Oh, Manifest Armor is down. I did not even notice it. Feels bad, man. It can die every now and then. It's tanky, but not obnoxiously tanky. Let's try to take this one down because I'm guessing that it's dealing a bit too much damage to our minions. The cooldown of the Manifest Armor itself is relatively long, but it dies very rarely. Like, I've never had survival issues that prevented me from clearing an echo on my Manifest Armor. The build is very tanky, very tanky. You can see that I have close to 6,000 armor while I'm spinning, because I get extra armor while I'm spinning. And there is some transfer of my armor to the minion, plus he gets my armor value. So, you know, the Manifest Armor that I have is pretty tanky. Now, I want to clear some of this trash so that I can take care of a nemesis. Let's empower it. You may notice I have not used Forge Strike. Yeah, that's by design. Forge Strike, not very good. Not very good. Very useful because it boosts the damage or pretty much everything that we have on screen, but it's like using the skill itself is not particularly good. Now, you may notice there was a cut there as we go into the fight with the dragon. Is it because I got killed by the dragon the first time that I tried the fight? Of course not. There is no proof of that. I did not cut that out. Outside of that, it's not a particularly difficult fight, and it's the reason why I picked this timeline. It's probably the boss that I thought the most in the whole, in my hundreds and hundreds, I'm probably close to 1,000 hours of the Last Epoch, because many of my characters in early access and patch 1.1 needed the heart of, I cannot pronounce it, but you know, one of the uniques that he drops. And so I farm this dude very consistently. I'm very familiar with the fight. So if I had to go to 1000 corruption and this fight does not completely counter my character, I'm going to pick this fight. Here the only important thing is stay alive. Don't get too close to the dude because you're not dealing any damage. This is true not just for this fight, but in general. Like, we are not dealing any damage while we spin around or using the, you know, this thing that deals literally no damage. No, just stay away from danger, spin, keep an eye on the hit points of the armor, because by spamming a potion, we can heal it, which can be very important and very clutch every now and then, and just stay alive. That's the most important thing. That's a good life advice from yours truly. Am I in 20%? Probably one more AoE and then we're done. The forged weapon died! No! It's okay, we resummoned it. That one is trash. Let's keep the current one. I'm at 19, so unless I get a 20, it's useless. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one, the Twisted Heart of Chaos. In previous patches I had almost everyone using it, so... No, okay. Profane 1, Giga Garbo. Don't care about that, don't care about that, don't care about that. Giga Trash. But you saw it wasn't a difficult fight at all. Like the Manifest Armor died at the very end when I was no longer paying attention to the fight, and the resummon was already available. It's not a long cooldown. It's not like the Wraithlord that resummoning it, or rather the Dread Shade that recasting it, the cooldown is roughly 5 hours. Manifest Armor very quick. So 10 seconds for such a tanky dude is a very, very reasonable cooldown, I would say. With that, I think that's all. Is it a build that I would suggest to go for? Well, we are already a few weeks into the league, so meta slaves are not going to check this build. Meta slaves are, you know, on day one they check what is the most broken thing, they do a copy-paste, and they go for that. Is this a fun build to play? It's interesting. It's a completely different way of playing a paladin class, because one mastery is basically a dude who self-heals, dealing damage around it. The other mastery, you go around either bonking stuff or spinning and dealing a ton of damage. Here you are kinda like a necromancer, sort of. You summon a bunch of nonsense. I think this build would be very cool. Very, very cool if you could use a ranged weapon, like a rifle. Forgeguard makes me think of dwarves, for fuck's sake. So, you know, if you could have a rifle, and as we shoot, we summon weapons, I think it would be very cool. If you don't mind the slightly dull gameplay, it's definitely a unique build that works pretty well. I'm not having any issue at all making progress in the game, and although some of the stuff I have is pretty cracked, it's helping me, but it's not necessary. You can go by with way worse stuff than that. And a cool thing is that outside of a Phantom Grip, which is clearly designed for this build, most of the other pieces can be the same for a Necromancer, sort of. On a Necromancer you would like intelligence, while this dude wants attunement, but, you know, a lot of gear can be recycled. So you can, if you build a Necromancer, you can take some of the stuff from the Necromancer and move it to a Forgeguard and play something a bit different. Is it better than a Necromancer? No! No. But it's interesting. It's a different way... it's a different character in terms of play style and required gear. And you summon a dude that scales with your stuff. It's an interesting build. Top meta, not really. Good enough to make it to high corruption. I'm at 750 and I'm climbing fairly consistently. Can I make it to 1000? I think so. But if you have watched my build showcase for the Stygian Leech, the Stygian Poison Leech, a thing that I mentioned is that in the late game, at very high corruption, with the Stygian Leech, what you do is you summon the Stygian Beam, and then you kite around, hoping that you don't die, while the Stygian build kills stuff. This build eventually starts to play in exactly the same way. You summon your nonsense, and you kite around, waiting for your nonsense to kill the enemies. Going from the Stygian Beam Leech to this, there is a lot in common between the two builds in terms of overall flow of a game. if you know what I mean. Like, completely different. One summons stuff, the other one doesn't summon anything. One is kinda melee, and the minions are melee. The other one has a beam that shoots around. Completely different, mechanically speaking, and also in terms of gearing. But what you're doing in the late game is the same. You kite around while something is clearing the screen. For Vestigian Beam Void, for Vestigian Beam build, it's Vestigian Beam itself. For this build is the army of nonsense that we summon. It's not for everyone, a bit like the Necromancer. And not everyone plays a class like the Necromancer because they prefer their character to be the one dealing damage. If you want that kind of build, then, you know, a Bonk Knight, a Spinning Knight, many bleed, there's a lot of melee options in this game, or casting builds as well. Casters are actually slightly better than melee in this game, but that's a topic for another video. But it's not awful. It's not awful. Sometimes I sound a bit pessimistic or negative when I give this feedback about classes, but every now and then, if you go on Reddit or the showcase is over, by the way. If you don't care about my rambling, you can turn off a video. Thank you for stopping by. Every now and then, especially at the beginning of a league, there is always a bit of overhyping certain builds and over-doom posting certain others. Like, oh, this build is the best one by far, everything else is literally unplayable. That build, giga trash. Forgeguard, not a playable character of the game known as Last Epoch. The truth is that there isn't anything that is completely unplayable. There are some things that are completely OP. Static lightning. But everything is playable, usable, and can climb to high corruption if you build it properly, you equip it properly, and you put a bit of investment into it. A Necromancer is, in my experience, I may be wrong, but of all the classes that I played and brought to very high corruption between early access, 1.0, 1.1, the Necromancer is by far the easiest to clear the content in the game, because it summons an army that clears the screen and your character just stays alive. It's not the build that deals more damage, though, because you can find some showcases on YouTube about people one-shotting Aberoth, for fuck's sake. Does it mean that the Necromancer is a bad build? No. Necromancer is very good. It's a very good class. You can spec it in many different ways. It just does things differently. Not many people play a Forgeguard. Is it giga trash? No. It's a good class. You're going to clear the campaign. You're going to clear the regular monolith. You're going to go very high in corruption. You're going to kill Aberoth. It may take more investment. It may take more time. And the ceiling that you can reach may be a little bit lower. I don't see this build making it to 2000 corruption. Past 1000, yes. But other than that, you get to the point where the Manifest Armor gets one shot by elite packs, and that's when you call it quits and you play a different character. But I have not found any, especially now, especially after the Shaman got a little bit of love during the last 2 patches. I would say there are no really bad characters in the Last Epoch. There are just some completely broken characters, some very good characters, and some good balanced characters. I mentioned the Shaman because, I'm sorry, but in early access was barely a playable class, and the only way to make it workable to some extent was to summon a bunch of totems. And even then it was not particularly good. Now it's fine. Anyway, rant over. If you've watched all the video, including the rant, thank you. And I will be back when we make it to 1000 with this. And then we will see if I have some other giga cursed, top meta build to showcase for YouTube. Bye guys, take care.